I think that everyone typically has to eat shit. There's no such thing as fast money.
This is Hassan, a sales coach and consultant who has helped over 200 people level up in his industry and made over 7 figures with his business off the back of that.
But I just wanted it more than anyone. So I was not afraid of criticizing myself. And because of that, I think that I made so much progress so fucking fast.
Landing himself a sales role after years of failures trying to make his initial agency take off, he was quickly able to become a standout sales rep before transitioning to building his own company, training up closers and building out sales teams for info product offers.
That only happened because I failed for so long that the slingshot kept being pulled further and further and further and further and further back, that the moment that I found my opportunity, it launched.
We sat down to explore his journey, his worldview, and the identity shifts he went through to go from hustling with taxi and food delivery jobs to living out his vision board while hitting 6-figure months.
How lucky am I to be exposed to this side of the internet where there's kids my age who are making multiple 6 figures a year, multiple 7 figures a year. And I was like, I've come across this information. It's a moral obligation that I have to myself to just fucking attempt it.
Welcome to another episode of Delusion by Design. Today, we're speaking to a guy that I've known for a couple years, and over the last 2 years, I've seen go from strength to strength, helping hundreds of people really make a better living for themselves, improve themselves in the skill that he's mastered. And hopefully today, we'll be able to give you some insight into how he's been able to master that skill himself and his life story to get up to that point. So, Hassan, with that being said, it's a pleasure to have you on, man.
Likewise, man.
To start off and just give, people who don't know you and, are seeing you for the first time some context. Who is Hassan and what does he do?
Yeah. So my name is Hassan. I'm 26 years old. Getting kind of old now, man. Ung status. Hairline is still intact, so I'm grateful for that. But yeah, I mean, I've been in sales at this point for almost 4 years now in info. Started off as a sales rep, then got into building my own consulting business, where at this point I've coached well over 200 sales reps at this point. So that's pretty much like a 30-second summary on me.
No, beautiful. And yeah, as I said, making tangible impact on people's lives and giving them a path to succeed for themselves. But, to start actually digging into you and the wins you've had, things that got you to where you are, if you could pick out, again, like 1 to 3 things from your childhood that you think help explain how you got to where you have as fast as you have, what would those be?
Damn, dude. I'd say the first one is just a deep sense of insecurity, right? For me, man, like growing up, it was interesting because I'd say I was like very unaware of like my surroundings, or just like very like unaware of like where I wanted to go. And then being a teenager, I remember thinking to myself, like, I am not living the life that I want to live, but it's okay. I'll figure it out. And then I remember during COVID specifically, I was 21 years old and I just had a deep realization. I remember like I went outside to the balcony and I just talked to myself for an hour and I was like, I'm really fucked if life just continues this way, because I am barely passing school. Dude, I had like a 2.8 GPA. Like it was bad. It was not good. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was studying accounting. And I was like, if I don't figure something out, like I am going to be fucked. Right? Like I wanna live in a position where like my kids can go to private school, where like anything that I ever want is taken care of, where I don't have to worry about these things. And I think that for some reason, for such a large, time of my life, I just neglected those things. And then at the age of 21 during COVID, because there was nothing to do but just stare at the wall pretty much, right? I did a lot of self-reflection, and all the things that I had been neglecting and just ignoring, they just came to the very forefront of my mind. And I was like, no, like I gotta make a fucking change. And I'd say that at that point in time is like when I started taking life a lot more serious and started embracing wanting to actually make a change. And that's when I had accepted that I was deeply insecure. And a lot of those things that I was hiding behind, I actually faced them in the mirror. I looked at the man in the mirror and I said, this is not who I want to be.
And, earlier we were speaking about this concept of insecurity and like what it's brought you in your life. And I'd love if you could unpack that a little bit, right? Because again, and we'll go deeper into the story, but from my reading of it, you managed to use that as fuel for the longest time to actually propel you. So yeah, I'd love if you could expand a bit on your thoughts around insecurity, and especially, as you've grown and you've met other people kind of doing what you're doing. How do you think, or how have you grown to conceptualize insecurity as a whole?
Dude, to be honest, I think that this is a hot take, but I think that being insecure can be one of the biggest superpowers, especially in the beginning stages. And I think that a lot of people that are starting out that have not achieved success, it's simply because they're not as insecure as they need to be. Because first of all, what even is insecurity, right? It's a disdain for where you're currently at in life, right? You're insecure, you don't feel good about yourself. But then it's like, okay, well, now what? Right? If you're a guy who's not in great shape, let's just say you're overweight or you're very skinny and you're insecure. Okay, you can either be the guy who doesn't go to the gym and just says, "Oh, I'm fucking insecure," and you hide from the world, or you can be the guy that says, "No, fuck this. I'm gonna get in fucking shape." Right? And that's something that I embodied quite early on in my life. Growing up, I was very skinny. Like, dude, I pretty much had like a like a eating disorder. I remember being like 16 years old, being like, I'm 5'10" now. I was like 5'9", and I probably weighed 105 pounds. Right? I don't know what that is in kg, but like it wasn't good. People call me anorexic, coat hanger, and I remember it was bad, bro. And I remember in like 1 year, I was able to add like 50 pounds to my frame and completely change that. And like that felt so fucking good. And then when I became insecure about being broke, right? Because I just didn't have any money. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? In my mind, I was like, wait a minute. Like I was insecure about being very skinny and I did something about it, right? Although it wasn't fucking easy. If I can do the same thing again, I can eradicate this pain. I can make my life better. So that's what I did. And I think that if I was not insecure about being broke, I think that if I was not insecure about being in a shitty position, I would have still been broke and life would have been really bad. So, in my opinion, sometimes being insecure and having those demons, you can use that to actually propel you, right? Because one of my favorite quotes of all time, I'm sure you've heard it, you can get bitter, you can get better, right? And for me, I've always used insecurity as a driver, right? To actually propel myself to be in a position that I wanted to be. And so to be honest, I'm very grateful for myself for having been insecure and for having had those demons in the first place because it allowed me to get to the position that I now am in.
No, I think that's very well put, man. I think it's very evident to see throughout your story. And again, we'll go deeper into it because I guess it's a good place to kick off. Like right now, you said you're in sales,
Mhm.
in info, you help guys get into sales roles, help them improve
Yep.
themselves. But let me take you back to the very start of your journey, right? So y- that moment where you had that self-reflection, self-realization during COVID, okay, I'm not where I want to be. I want to change things. What were your kind of first steps to start doing that, the path you saw at the time?
Yeah. Dude, so at that point in time, I was like, I want to build a marketing agency, right? Because like back then, there's a guy named Iman Ghazi who was popping. He still is fucking popping. But I remember watching his content and I was like, all right, this makes sense. Because like prior to that, I tried something called drop shipping, made a little bit of money, nothing too tangible, right? And then I said, okay, I want to build a marketing agency. Like this is going to be my way out. If I build a marketing agency, this is how I'm going to become successful, and that's what I wanted to do. Needless to say, it didn't go too well, bro. It was quite bad, actually. I remember I had borrowed $1,000 from my older brother for the first investment that I made, and I literally made no money from that. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to hire VAs to starting outreach because anyone that knows anything about building a marketing agency knows that outreach is fucking sucks. Right. So I realized very quickly, like, okay, if I just do outreach myself all day, I just simply won't be able to do the volume that I need to do to get the results that I want. Right. So I started working at Pizza Hut 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, while still like taking online classes during COVID.
Delivery.
Pizza delivery driver. Yeah. Not fun, bro. Oh my God. Dark days. But I did that, invested in a VA, still made no money. Right? And then I stumbled across a guy by the name of Serge Gatari, right? Who now has a lot of followers, but back then, bro, he had like 950 followers on Instagram. And the only reason why I even watched his videos or like even followed him was because he coincidentally like lived in my city. Okay. And here's where like things get really crazy. Like it's just like it's wild. So what ended up happening is he accidentally left the Google Drive link of his program, which at that point in time was like 5 grand, right? And when I knew it was 5 grand, I was like, I'm not fucking paying 5 grand. Like, come on now, right? I'm already down 7 grand. I haven't made a dollar back. Like 5K, you're crazy. So I downloaded the program from his Google Drive because he fucked up. He had a screenshot of like the program that he was working on. And he caught me because I opened up one of his looms on my account and it gave him a notification that this Hassan guy like has seen your video. So I remember he messages me and he's like, "What the fuck?" with a question mark, right? And I'm thinking at that point in time, like, do I block this guy? Like, oh fuck, like this is not good. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I won't block him. I'll respond to it. And I'm like, yeah, man, I got your program. You fucked up, right? And then he tells me, he's like, bro, I'm not even mad. Like, how'd you find it, right? Like, if you're smart enough to get it for free, like use the program. And I'm like, oh, I got it from like your Google Drive link. And then I actually watched the program and I'm like, this is really fucking good. And I'm like, but at the same time, if I want to get results with this, I need to have more access to this guy. So for me, being shameless, I just keep spamming him messages, right? And then he responds to me and he's like, dude, just fucking pay me. Like, why are you being so cheap? And then I was like, okay, dude, like, I don't really have a lot of money. Can you give me a payment plan option? He's like, okay. And then I remember like I paid him the last 2.5K that I had, and bro, when I paid him that 2.5K, like, I was so fucking scared. Like, I still remember like it's yesterday, I paid him the 2.5K. That day, I come home from, like, my delivery shift, it's 2 AM, it's raining outside. I know this sounds really cliche, and I'm, like, sitting in, like, my terrible car. I used to drive a 2001 Toyota Corolla. Wasn't even mine, bro, it was actually my uncle's, and I was borrowing it, right? So I had no money to even afford a car. And I'm just there drinking coffee, and I just start crying. And I'm like, "If this doesn't work, I'm fucked." 'Cause at that point in time, I had total invested 10 grand, and I was like, "If this doesn't work, I'm fucked. I'm an idiot. It means I couldn't do it. It means that everyone was right, and it means that I'm worthless." And I remember just, like, shaking, and I don't know what it was. I was like, "No, like, it's gonna happen. Like, this time I know it's gonna fucking happen." And I didn't know how, but I just felt like it was gonna happen. But what's interesting is success didn't come right after that, but we'll dive into that. But that pretty much, like, sums up, like, how I initially, like, thought I was gonna make money, but not how I actually made money, because that's a different story.
So that was your entree into
Yeah.
online business as a
Yep.
whole. Started with programs, then saw Serge initially, paid him. During this time, you're doing delivery drives.
Yeah.
At that time, did you see the agency as, or an agency model as kind of the only way that you'd
Yep.
be able to get to your goals?
100%. And it's interesting. I'll tell you why though. So I saw like a lot of different business models at that point in time. Like the big three back then, it was either affiliate marketing, it was either SMMA, or it was either drop shipping, right? And I had already tried drop shipping before that. I made like a couple $1,000s, but I was like, all right, this is bullshit. Affiliate marketing, I was like, dude, I'm not gonna make fucking videos. Like, come on, right? And the agency model, the reason why I really liked it is because it seems so difficult and complex. And my brain was like, because this is so difficult and complex, because I respect this so much, this is real. All right. So if I can get good at this, I will make money. And this is a real fucking business. Like, this isn't some like bullshit online money, right? Because I had a little bit of PTSD from that, from like making a couple thousand with like my drop shipping store and like nothing really happening after that. So that's why I was like, okay, like I gotta build a fucking marketing agency.
And then, I mean, you mentioned Serge before, and he, ends up playing quite a big role in the story later on. But as a whole, what was it that actually led you to realize, okay, maybe marketing agency isn't it?
Yeah.
What's this other option I have?
Okay, so this is an interesting story, bro. So here's what ended up happening. Around the time that I actually paid Serge the 2.5 grand. So I live in a city called Montreal in Canada, right? My cousin, he calls me up on the phone. I'm like, what's up? He's like, hey, bro, like, come to Toronto. Like, you can drive taxi over here at the airport and you can make like 5 or 6 grand a month, right? And I remember thinking, I'm like, fuck, okay, like, I'm here delivering pizza. So I'm making like 2 grand a month doing this, tops 3 grand a month. I have no money. Fuck it. Like, I'll go to Toronto, I'll drive taxi, I'll have enough money to like actually invest back into the agency, right? So that's what I did. Little did I know, like, what I was getting myself into. So, pretty much, here's what the job actually was, right? So I was working at an airport called Pearson Airport, and essentially what we would do is we would act like we were taxi drivers. Like, it was illegal, but not really illegal. Like, if you got caught by the cops, just give you a ticket. Like, they would just more so get annoyed at you, right? And what we would do is we would pretend like we were real taxi drivers. And my goal was, or my job rather, was to park my car at one of the terminals. There was Terminal 1 and Terminal 3. And it was like a whole operation, bro. We'd be like on the call with each other. It was me, my cousin, and like a bunch of other guys. And we had to basically go into the airport, tell somebody they were a taxi driver, drive them to their designated location, and we charged them like the same amount. Like, it's not like we were charging outrageous prices. But the reason why the profit would be higher is because we didn't have to pay to like any company, right? Because we were like freelancers. And what's crazy is I think that's what actually taught me sales, because it was so fucking scary. Like, dude, like, I'd go to the airport and my car was it was a shit box. So I'd have to go to the airport, go to somebody, say I'm a taxi driver, convince them to like walk in. I take their luggage, put it inside, and then I'd be like, yeah, like, I'm gonna drop you off. And sometimes they were like, are you sure you're not gonna kidnap me? And then I remember like showing them my ID, showing them my Instagram. I was like, look, guys, I'm a frail brown kid. Like, I'm not gonna fucking kidnap you. So that actually taught me sales. But needless to say, I fucking hated it. Like, bro, it was so stressful and I hated my life so much. I remember I lost like 20 pounds because I was literally drinking a cup of coffee and eating half a muffin a day. Right. And the way that I got into sales is, I remember one day I drop off this one client and I'm just like really fucking depressed. Right. I'm like, I fucking hate my life. So I just go, I park my car to take a break. I go on Instagram and I see Serge's story and he writes he's looking for a closer. I had no idea what a fucking closer was. I thought a closer is actually an appointment setter that would make 2 grand a month. But I remember at that point in time, I was like, I hate my life so much. I'll gladly fucking do this. Right. I don't care. So I message him. I'm like, yo, what's a closer? I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. And then he tells me, he's like, yeah, dude, you'll be taking sales calls. I'm like, why would you want someone to take sales calls for you? He's like, because I don't want to take them. I'll give you 15% commission. I'm like, 15% commission? Huh? I'm like, I want to do it. He's like, okay, but you'll be competing with like 5 other guys. I'm like, fuck it. All right. So I remember the next day I wake up with like 5 other people. And these were like experienced agency owners that had taken sales calls. I had taken maybe 4 calls in my life from like my failed agency. But I remember in my mind, like on that first meeting, bro, like it's yesterday, I was like, I'm gonna fuck these guys up. Right. And I just think that I said that in my mind because I just wanted to make money so bad, bro. Like imagine a year of just deep failures, like nothing, right? Like you haven't made a fucking dollar. I was like, I'm gonna fuck these guys up. And what's crazy is it was like 5, 6 people. And like as the meetings went on, more and more people, like, or less and less people started showing up. Eventually it got to the point where it was only 3 people. I took a few sales calls and I closed my 3rd sales call. And I was like, huh? This guy actually bought? And I remember being told that I just made like $400 in commission that day. Right? 2 more days went by. I took another sales call. I closed it. I took another sales call. I closed it. And I remember thinking like, this isn't fucking real. I was like, is this guy gonna even pay me? Right? Because I'm like, okay, like here, Serge was like 23 years old at the time. He did not care too much about his personal brand. So he would wear like black t-shirts and Adidas track pants. And I'm like, will this guy actually fucking pay me? Like this can't be real. And he did. And like my whole life just changed after that. And I remember like the guys were telling me, dude, how are you doing this? It was like that scene from like Wolf of Wall Street. I shit you not. Like when he sells the penny stocks. And they're like, how are you doing this? And he's like, how are you not doing this? This is so easy. That's what was going on in my mind. I was like, this is so fucking easy. Like he gave me a script, right? And I wasn't even following the script because I was like, this script is garbage. So I was like, let me just talk to these guys. Because in my mind, I was like, this is a good program. Like, why would they not get results with it? So I would just logic close people. And I just remember thinking like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Because like by the time that month was over, bro, I made 10K in commissions.
In your first month?
My first month with no sales training. And I was like, dude, I want to do this forever. It was crazy, bro. It was crazy. Like, you just telling you the story just took me back, bro. Like I remember I remember the exact date too, by the way. November 9th, 2022 is when I closed my first deal. Yeah. I'll never fucking forget it, bro. That's the day my life changed.
The rest is history.
Rest is history.
And when you think back to, because you mentioned like, you went into the training with Serge, there were a few other people there.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you were the one that ended up getting the actual job aside from really wanting it?
So, I mean, number one is I performed, right? Serge is like very like A-type, like it's like a result of everything. So number one is I performed. But number two is I wanted it more than anyone. To give you an example of this, dude. So I was staying in my cousin's apartment, okay? There were fucking rats in that apartment. I was taking sales calls on a bed with a white wall that had cracks in it. And before that, because I was still, wanting to build my agency, I was still sending looms even when I was driving taxi at the airport. I would record looms in a fucking closet. So for me, I was like, I want this more than anyone. Like, dude, I remember like dressing super posh. I would have like my sweater with like my fucking scarf on. I'd be in my boxers, but no one knew, right? I'd take the laptop, make the angle go up. But I just wanted it more than anyone. I was like, I want this. I remember like, I didn't even know how to objection handle, what a discovery process was. Like one of the first sales calls I ever took that I closed, the guy's like, if this is so good, why don't you do it? And I'm like, I do it. He's like, how much are you making a month? I'm like, 10K a month. He's like, what kind of agency do you have? I said, e-commerce. He's like, what kind of niche? I'm like, jewelry. Like, I just made shit up because I was like, I need the money. Like, I need the fucking money. And I think that's why I won. I even remember back then, there was a folder that he had in his Google Drive of like sales reps that he fucking fired, right? And this is how proactive I was. I watched every single sales call from every single shit sales rep from back in the day that he fired to be like, okay, I don't know what to do, but this is what I shouldn't fucking do. All right. So I literally made like a Google Doc of notes that I wrote down. And I'm like, this is what I'm not going to do because I don't want to get fired. And that's how proactive I was, bro. Because I was like 15% commission on like a 7K program. Like, huh? So I honestly, I just think that's what it was, bro. And it also just felt really easy because I was doing shit jobs for so long and just working for free for so long when I was doing outreach all day before that, that when I was taking sales calls and just talking to people, I was like, this doesn't even feel like work. Right? So, yeah.
Because, I mean, you mentioned there looking at what not to do, right? But I think the thing that's impressive with you is you jumped into the deep end and succeeded very quickly. So as much as knowing what not to do is important, you also need to kind of have a vague idea of what to do, right?
Yes.
So how do you think you were able to get so good so quickly at sales?
Very good question. I actually practice quite a bit. So, dude, I used to have insane social anxiety when I was younger, even in college, to the point where I was like, I don't know where to look when I'm walking outside on campus. Or I'd be doing like a test and I was like, oh, I think I'm breathing too loud. So I remember like during COVID, when I was doing deliveries, I would be in my car and just talking to myself, pretending like I was on a podcast, right? Ironically enough, right? But that's what I would do. And I would just have these debates out loud. And I was like, oh, I have to do this because if I don't do this, then how the hell is anyone going to take me serious on sales calls? It's crazy because back then I was doing so much outreach. I wasn't even booking any fucking sales calls, but I was like, if I book sales calls, I need to be, taken seriously. So I think that in itself helped me quite a bit in the sense of just like getting a lot of, I guess, practice of just like getting good at just speaking, right? And then also just like I guess having conviction in that, right? Because it's like dude, it's hard to explain, but like I just wanted to make money so bad that I was able to hypnotize myself on those sales calls of like I was that guy temporarily. I like to call it like flipping the switch. So it's like when the sales call would start, I was like, okay, I am like successful Hassan 2.0 who is like super good at sales. And then as soon as like the deal was closed or the call was done, I would go back to like normal Hassan. And I think that I was able to just hypnotize myself because that feeling of closing the first deal was so fucking euphoric. Like, I can't describe it. Like, it was the greatest, most exhilarating feeling I've ever had in my life. I know I sound like a drug addict saying that, but, like, I was like, I want that constantly. So I think I was just able to hypnotize myself every time I was taking a sales call that I am that guy, even though I fucking wasn't. There's times where I'd be taking sales calls, dude, and, like, I couldn't fucking feel my hands. And that happened for the first 100 sales calls, but the prospect never knew because when the call was happening, I wasn't that Hassan. I was that new Hassan who was gonna take his fucking money. So I just think it was just self-hypnosis, but also a lot of practice from before because I'm sure you've heard of the concept, Antonio, called the slingshot effect, right? And I think that
But if
when
you want to go into it a
yeah,
bit for some context as
yeah,
to like how you understand it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So basically what the slingshot effect is, guys, is that it's when you are accumulating a lot of experience. So for me, it was like when I was trying to build a marketing agency and I was building discipline by waking up at fucking 7 a.m. Right? Back then it was like meditating, right? Meditating was a big thing, even though that didn't fucking make me rich. But meditating, journaling, building discipline, and just getting used to just fucking getting kicked in the face and not complaining. When I did that, I accumulated a skill set. And what happened over time is I became very, very resilient. My skin became very, very thick. Essentially, I developed calluses, right? And I think that the slingshot kept being pulled backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards to the point where when I started taking sales calls, my competitors or the guys that wanted the job were like, "Oh my god, I have to take a sales call." Like, oh, holy shit! Like, I'm so scared. For me, I was like, "I'm not fucking scared." Oh, I mean, I am scared, but I'm not going to show that because I need to fucking make money. And I think that that only happened because I failed for so long that the slingshot kept being pulled further and further and further and further and further back. That the moment that I found my opportunity, it launched.
Mm.
Right? And I think that that's why I succeeded rather quickly, but at the same time, it only seems like that. I don't think I fucking succeeded quick, bro, because, like, if someone says I succeeded quick, they weren't there when I was doing outreach for 12 hours a day, bro. They weren't there when I was fucking crying in my car at fucking 2 AM being like, "I'm a fucking failure." They weren't there when I had, like I was minus 10 grand and I was like, "What am I gonna do?" Right? So, eh, in a way, I succeeded quick because I succeeded very quickly in an industry that suited me, but at the same time, I didn't because I had a whole history of failures. Right? So
There's no such thing as the overnight success, right?
there's no such thing, bro. There really isn't. And here's what's interesting, right? I think, bro, that if that version of Hassan that first got started during COVID to build a marketing agency, I think if that version of Hassan got a sales job, he would have fumbled the bag
Mm.
because that guy had no fucking discipline at all. That guy couldn't fucking sit down for 20 minutes and read a book. How the hell was he going to take a sales call? That guy had no respect for himself. He was a child. So I think that the guys that like eventually figure it out, they develop a history of experience that actually prepares them for that one moment. And I think that everyone typically has to eat shit. There's no such thing as fast money. The guy that gets lucky in crypto, he'll go broke after a year. Why is it that lottery winners lose their money so fast? Because they have no fucking discipline. Because they have no skill set. Because they have no history.
And speak to me a bit about that concept of discipline, because earlier today you said something I found really interesting was that you said you don't think you were ever that disciplined, you were just obsessed.
Yep.
And that's even something I had noted down, kind of like whether you think someone needs to at least go through a period of obsession to be able to reach these goals, but what did obsession look like for Hassan 2.0 as you were starting in sales and kind of making a name for yourself there?
So here's why I say this, bro. So I remember, this is funny. This goes back to when I was a teenager. So when I first got started with the gym, I became addicted, right? Because I started putting on muscle very quickly, started getting compliments, and I was like, this is great. And I remember I was very disciplined. I was on like a, legs push pull routine 6 days a week from the ages of like 17 to like 20. And I remember thinking to myself, why don't people work out? Like I was like very confused by that, right? Because I was like, you look better in clothes, life is good, like you live longer. Like, wow, people are so fucking lazy. But here's what's funny, right? I didn't realize that the only reason I was saying that was because I fucking enjoyed it. So if you enjoy doing something, that's not discipline, right? It's easy to do because you enjoy it. And here's what's funny. The moment that my brain changed its desire and its goal from like wanting to be jacked to wanting to make money, guess what I did? Do you think I kept working out? Nope. I dropped that shit immediately. I lost like a lot of weight. I stopped working out and I pretty much became a coat hanger. But had I had the discipline, I would have still worked out, right? But why did I do that? Because I fell out of love with it, right? Because the passion went away and the discipline, well, was never there. So I wasn't there to carry it. And for sales, dude, here's the thing. It made me a crap ton of money. It gave me validation. I remember like when I first started making money with sales, I was like, holy shit, like I can actually see now because people just started treating me so different. Like like the best analogy I can make is like for anyone that's watching this that like wears contact lenses or glasses, it's like, you know how you don't have your lenses on your glasses and you can't fucking see, and then you put on your lenses, you put on your glasses, you can actually see. That's what it felt like when I started making money. I was like, wow, this is what it feels like to be treated like a normal fucking person. Like, this feels amazing. And so, of course, because of that, I know I went on a long tangent, but because of that, it was so easy for me to stay focused on that because I literally felt like it was a fucking rebirth for me. I was like, I love my life. Bro, food started tasting better, music started sounding better, like everything was amazing, right? So I was like, why would I not do this? And I remember distinctly, bro, for the first 7 months, I didn't take a fucking day off. Do you want to know why? I was so scared that the person I was closing for at that point in time named Serge was gonna hire somebody else. At the first month that I made money, I was like, hey, bro, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I will work for you 7 days a week. Do me one favor, don't hire anyone. He was like, you're crazy. And I'm like, no, this isn't even work for me. This is fun. And for 7 months straight, I worked 7 days a week. I slept 4 hours a day and I was taking like 10 calls a day. Cause I was just obsessed. And I was obsessed because my life changed. And it was a drug that I couldn't get enough of.
So I'm assuming it was quite quick that you realized, okay, I'm no longer trying to run this agency. This is
Oh yeah, I dropped that shit quick, bro.
okay.
I dropped that shit quick because by month 3, I was making 20 grand a month. And then shortly after 25 grand a month consistently in commissions. And I was like, I would have to be making like 50 grand a month as an agent in order to be taking this home profit. And I was like, well, why would I do that? I'll just do this. So I just stuck with it.
And then since then, sales in one way, shape, or another has always kind of been the thing you do and the thing your goals are revolved around.
Exactly.
And in terms of the actual experience you had with Serge, so there's two kind of things I want to go down in that path, and maybe one day
Mhm.
I'll have with him a deeper conversation. But with you, in terms of sales specifically,
Mhm.
what would you say you learned from being in his organization and in that initial experience you had?
What did I learn? I mean, bro, I learned so many different lessons. Um, I mean, learning in what sense though? Like, cause there's personal lessons that I took. There's like, business lessons that I took.
I mean, because I want to ask about the business lessons in general, right?
Uh-huh.
So you went into info yourself,
Yes.
but
Well, actually, working for him in his organization taught me. I used to always say this quote. I was like, I learned more about business working for this guy than I would have if I went to fucking Harvard, right? Because I saw how he was running the organization. I saw like how he was orchestrating the team meetings. I saw why he was hiring certain people, why he was firing certain people. But more than anything, what it showed me is what can actually happen if a person commits to one thing. Because he also had a whole host of failures before he actually built his consulting business. And I remember when I first got started, it was so funny because I was like, dude, like, I don't want to do this forever because like, what if his business fails and I'm gonna get fired? I'm gonna lose my job. But seeing how much conviction he had in what he did made me have the same conviction in what I did. And I think that's also what led for me to have the confidence to eventually quit closing and build my own consulting business. In fact, 2 months in, I remember closing for him. I bought the domain name called salesconsulting.io because I knew I was gonna have my own consulting business.
so that was something you had already kind
Oh
of
yeah.
planned for. It wasn't a spontaneous decision that
No.
came to you.
I always knew I was gonna have my own consulting business.
And You know, even before that, you mentioned the conviction, you mentioned the obsession. At what point did you realize you could actually get really good at sales?
Hmm. Actually, this dates back to an older story.
Mm.
This is a very, very interesting story. So when I had my agency, right, I had booked in 6 sales calls, and this is gonna be crazy. You're gonna be like, "Holy shit." So I booked in this one sales call for a company called Orchid, and it was basically a period tracking app. And I'm talking to this old guy on the call, and do you wanna know who he was? The fucking co-founder of Manscaped,
Mm.
which is a billion-dollar company. And Orchid was a company that his daughter was making as a passion project, right? Period tracking. And I remember when I was talking to this guy, I was like literally trembling. I was like, here I am. I work at fucking Pizza Hut. I just got done with my fucking shift. And I'm talking to the fucking co-founder of Manscaped. And I was able to get this guy to take me serious and actually book a second call. Granted, the second call happened a month after the first one. It was so funny because by the time the second call happened, I was already in Toronto, and I had literally taken my day off work. I had, like, rented this office for $20 an hour just so I could take my sales call there with him, and I remember he said that he wanted to actually work with me, and he said something to me along the lines of, "Oh, I've taken hundreds of calls, but there's just something about you that I really like, so I actually wanna work with you." Needless to say, the deal didn't go through. Kept following up with this guy like crazy, and then his son eventually messaged me and he said, "Oh, we're just not interested. We have different priorities." But I just remember thinking to myself at that point in time, why is this guy taking me fucking serious? Like, I deliver pizzas. I have not made $1 online. Huh? And when I had eventually closed my first deal, in my first sales role, I was like, I think I have something that most people don't, right? And this is where I think that like having like a sense of confidence where like you do have a little bit of a superiority complex is actually important. I like to call it the healthy ego
Mm.
because that in itself is what gave me the delusional confidence to believe that I think I can become one of the best in the world, right? And that's why I stuck with it.
And you mentioned the word delusion there. I was going to ask later, but I named the podcast Delusion by Design.
Yeah.
I'd love to know how do you understand
Ooh.
delusion to
Dude, this is
mean?
probably
Yeah.
my favorite question you've asked me so far, to be honest.
What role has it played in your life?
Oh, dude, it's played such a big role. Okay, so I always say this. I say that for anyone that's getting started, especially when they want to do something great, we can talk about the realm of entrepreneurship specifically. You have to be fucking delusional. And I'll tell you why. So, as an example, when I was getting started, I had to be fucking delusional. I didn't know anyone in my life that was rich. Like, for me to think that, okay, I'm going to start a business, or I'm going to make money online, and I'm going to out earn my college professors. I'm going to out earn like really any degree that I can normally get. You have to be pretty fucking delusional to believe that, right? Especially for me, where I did not have any sort of like track record of success. Because I'm sure you've heard of the quote, confidence comes from competence, right? I like to add on to that. And confidence comes from competence, and competence comes from having a positive track record. I didn't have a fucking positive track record. So obviously, I had to be fucking delusional to think that it was even possible in the first place. You know what I mean? It's an entirely different thing of like now, if I went and I started a different business, well, it's fucking easy because I've already made over $1 million, right? So for me to like do that, like I can conceptualize this is actually going to be possible. But that old version of me that was getting started, he had never had success. He had only worked a minimum wage job and had $50 in his fucking bank account. So for that version of me, he had to be delusional because his concept of success was delusional in comparison to the life that he had lived thus far. That comparison just didn't make sense because there was no track record. So to me, delusion is necessary in the beginning stages and it's not a bad thing, right? I think that you have to be delusional by having faith that one day it's all going to work out.
Is that something you think came naturally to you, or did you kind of cultivate that intentionally as you went along?
I think that I cultivated it as time went on because, well, here's what's funny, dude. So growing up, I used to be very insecure about my intelligence. I thought I was a dumbass, right? Like I got horrible grades in school. Granted, I never tried. But like, funny story, bro. Yo, you're gonna call me so autistic for this. I remember like it's yesterday. So during COVID, when I was like, okay, I'm gonna build a business, I was like, okay, Hassan, if you're gonna build a business, you have to make sure this is not a waste of your time. So the best way to do this is to do a bunch of IQ tests online to ensure that you at least get above average. We all know IQ tests online are bullshit, but I remember scoring relatively high on them. And then I was like, okay. Because I scored relatively high on these, even if they're fake, the likelihood of me having an above average IQ is higher than I thought it was before. Therefore, I can probably do this. So this is not gonna be a waste of time anymore. Like it's so stupid. I had like this whole process in my brain to justify why I should even put an effort in the first place. So wait, where was I going with this? What was the question originally? You were talking about okay, if it came naturally to you. So for me, it's like I've always had to like justify things to myself to actually follow a line of thinking. Like, I'm not a person that can be persuaded very easily. So for me, like, no matter what, train of thought I have, or no matter what perspective I gain, there has to be a logical rationale behind that for me to actually embody that thought process. So I wouldn't say it came naturally to me. I think that over time I just had to logically justify, like, hey, it is worth it for me to put an effort because I'm broke right now, and the likelihood of me becoming successful is slim to none. But in the one reality that I did become successful, what did I have to do? I had to do it, right? I actually talk track that I use on my sales calls and I teach a lot of my clients. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. That was a big clusterfuck of information, but yeah.
Definitely. And with the skills that you were able to develop through sales, how do you think, business aside, how do you think that skill set has served you in life as a
Oh,
whole?
dude, it has paid me fucking dividends, bro. Like, when I got good at sales, I got good at talking to people. Okay. So when it came to just like, you know, meeting new people and getting them to like me, I know this is gonna sound so manipulative, but it's so easy, bro. Because like, look, human psychologists, people enjoy talking about themselves, right? And number two is people like it when you ask them questions that are meaningful to them. And number three is people like it when you can make them feel seen. So when I understood these concepts and I would just go out there and just talk to people, I was like, I can get this guy to like me in 2 fucking seconds. Right. And it became relatively easy. But aside from that, when it comes to something that's more meaningful, over like building meaningful connections, I was able to do that because I was able to ask questions that actually matter to people instead of just like talking about nonsense. Right. And I only learned that through sales. Or even when it comes to, I guess, like talking to girls, you know what I mean? Like I became a lot less awkward when it comes to just approaching or just having genuine conversations. So I think, bro, it paid dividends. Even in like building my business. You know what I mean? Like that as well. Like my skill set was so high that I was able to take calls from ice cold traffic and scale that business to 100K a month. So I think it paid dividends in really every facet of my life, 100,000%.
And to go slightly deeper into it, I've done my research. I saw you say, I think you mentioned before as well, you were at the gym, so you say you were a power lifter.
Mhm,
I've heard you say that you were very competitive with video games as well
mhm,
growing up.
mhm,
So, two-part question.
mhm.
Do you think the character traits that you naturally had growing up and up to the point where you started were played a big role in helping you have the success you had with sales?
100%. 100%. I always say, like, look, sales is not for the faint of heart. Like, if you're not there to be the best, you're not gonna make it. 'Cause it's fucking hard, right? I mean, from my current perspective now, I'd say like getting to 10K a month in commissions is not that difficult. But if you want to get to 20 or 30 or 40K a month in commissions, it is more difficult. But at the same time, I'm saying that from my current skill level. Objectively speaking, the guys that I've worked with that have made the most amount of money, they were competitive as fuck, right? Actually, funny story. I don't think I even mentioned this before to you, but my two best friends, John and Gohar, these guys were engineers and hyper competitive. They got into this industry, and one of them made 54K a month in commissions, and the other guy made like 45K a month in commissions consistently. And they are two of the most competitive fuckers that I know. So being hyper competitive, in my opinion, is a very big driver when it comes to your success in sales because you making 30, 40, 50K a month in commissions is not going to happen because you want to make 30 or 40 or 50K a month in commissions. It's going to happen because you say, I want to be the fucking best. Right. So if you say, I want to be the best in my fucking sales team, you will make that much money. But if your goalpost is, I want to make 30 or 40 or 50K a month in commissions, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to make that. Right. But it takes a certain type of person to even talk like that or think like that. I remember growing up when I would be playing video games with my friends, if I lost twice in a row, I would just say, I don't want to play anymore. Not because I was salty. I was like, there's just no point because you're going to beat me every single time. And for me, if I lose, I'm not having fun. Right. To me, I don't play a game to have fun. I play to win. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know. But if I win, I'm having fun. If I'm losing, I'm not having fun. So as an example, I'm pretty shit at pool. Right. So if I play with, my friend John who's really good at pool and he beats me twice in a row, I'm not gonna play with him. I'm gonna be like, dude, fuck you. I'm losing. This to me is not fun. So I think 100% it takes a certain mindset to really excel in this industry. If you're someone who's more mellow, you can still do well. Don't get me wrong. But if you're someone who is extremely obsessive, you're gonna have a good time.
Do you think that not just competitiveness, but
Mm.
the other types of character traits it takes to do well with sales are things that someone can develop, or do they have to come naturally to them?
I think you can develop them. So as an example, I am extremely introverted. I always have been. And sales, I mean, honestly, a large part of it is just listening and just asking the right questions. You know what I mean? Oftentimes, when it comes to guys that are too extroverted that just ask too many questions, there's just that interrupt too much, they don't do as well. And again, at the end of the day, what really is sales, bro? It's just asking questions and just understanding human psychology. Like, you're fantastic at fucking podcasts, but you probably weren't always like that, right? It probably took you time to learn these skill sets, right? I'm sure that you were good at communication from the beginning, but you learned different skill sets that compounded over time that turned you into the guy that you are right now. It's the same thing for me. So I think that when it comes to doing well at sales, anyone can get to the point where they can become really good at sales by learning these skill sets. But one of the quotes that I live by is hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work as hard. If talent works just as hard, then obviously the results are gonna be quite ridiculous. And for me, like, I was always good at, convincing people of a perspective that I had. I didn't realize I had the skill set. And so when I got into sales and I, overcame some of the hurdles that I had of, like, just being afraid to talk and whatnot, and just learning basic communication skills, that initial strength that I had connected and it compounded and I became world class at what I did.
Amazing, man. Do you think sales is something that can benefit everyone in their lives?
Oh yeah, 100%. Matter of fact, I think that the best self development that you can have, I'm biased. I think it's sales. I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you about a client of mine named Austin. This guy actually went to my high school, and we were not really good friends or anything. We barely spoke. And Austin, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be honest. This guy was a fucking nerd, right? Had no self confidence whatsoever. Did not carry himself in the best way. This guy learned sales, and everything in his life fucking changed. The way he dressed, the way he spoke, everything changed. And people from our high school like don't even recognize the guy anymore. And so I say that sales literally turns you into a fucking man. Like, the amount of self-development that you can have getting into sales is insane. Like, think about it. Like, think about what it does to you psychologically when you're like, I am making a person pay five or $10,000 on a call. And sometimes a person they don't want to do it, but you are the person that helps them overcome their fear of doing that. You are being the big brother on the call, right? You are being that leader. So you're telling me that if you're doing that on sales calls, that does not change the way that you perceive yourself in real life? Of course it does, right? So I think that the development that it has is, I mean, again, like I said, I'm biased, but like to me, it's insane. It's astronomical.
For sure. And I think, it's reflected in what it's done in your life. So
Mhm.
it's easy to kind of see it that way. And even, to kind of pivot slightly into the next step you took, right? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you had the role with Serge and then you went straight into your own offer.
Yes.
So when you made that decision, right, you kind of, at least from the outside looking in, you had to pivot from I'm selling this to I'm now teaching people to sell them better.
Mhm.
How have you found the difference between being a good sales rep and being a good teacher or coach for sales reps?
Yep. It's crazy because it's so different. Like, it's so different. You know what's funny, bro? Like, becoming a sales coach made me so patient. And I realized that I was not the most patient person because in the beginning I was like, why don't they get this? Like, this is so easy, this is so simple. And when I started working with more and more clients, some a lot more gifted, some a lot less gifted, some of the challenges that I had is I was like, wait a minute, if I can get this guy who's not as gifted and I can get him pretty fucking good, then that means I'm a really good sales coach. And that for me became something that actually empowered me over time. And it taught me so much about how people work, about how the human brain works, about how motivation works. And bro, a lot of lessons that like I learned over like getting good at coaching my clients, it just made me realize things about myself as well. Like over like how I succeeded or like how certain things did not make me succeed. But yeah, being a coach and being a sales rep they're two different things. Like, you have to be very patient with people. You have to be very understanding of people. You have to understand how they think. You have to like I can go on it like forever, bro, but I like I said before, I was never the most patient guy, and becoming a sales coach, I think it actually made me better at sales.
I hear that.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned that a couple months in, you already knew you wanted to have your own
Mhm.
offer. What was it that made you think the time is now to actually get started with this?
Well, here's what's interesting. I always thought that it was gonna be a right time, and I remember, I was closing and also running the coaching business at the same time. I had hit like 2 organic months of 20K a month. Eventually that stopped working, and I realized that if I truly wanted to build that business, I was gonna have to quit when I felt the most uncomfortable. So, I remember like it's yesterday, like, I was, like, fucking shaking. I hopped on the call and I was like, "I quit," because I have this dream that I wanna accomplish. And in my mind, bro, I was like, I dude, I used to even, like, have these voice memos on my phone that are recorded, and I was like, I'll know that if I stay comfortable and I never take that risk of building my business, then I was always the guy that was too much of a coward to follow his dreams because I was stuck doing something that was too comfortable, and I don't wanna be that guy. And so I took that risk because for me, I wanted to do it. I just knew that, like, I did not wanna be the guy that just, followed orders forever. I wanted to be more in control of what I did, and for me, I was like, "Okay, if I'm gonna have a higher impact, if I wanna make more money, I have to own a fucking business." I mean, that's what I wanted to do from day one. I got into sales by accident, right? So it just became a natural process. Just happened.
Yeah, I like how you said when it felt most uncomfortable, 'cause
Yeah.
that makes sense. And now that you've coached quite a few people,
Mhm.
at least again from the outside looking in, the perspective I'd have would be that you can start to see how maybe your style is not the only style that works,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So based on that,
Yeah.
again, not necessarily what works for you, but just commonalities you've seen between people who, again, you've seen that you've coached that are very good. What does it actually take to be a good closer?
Okay, what does it take to be a good closer? I would say number 1 is it takes a lot of patience. You have to be very good at listening. And what's interesting is most people don't know this, they're fucking terrible at listening.
Mm,
Because what happens is, most people when they're having a conversation, they're constantly thinking about, like, what question they're gonna ask instead of, like, actually listening to the person. And what I always say is I'm like, "Guys, if you can have the same chemistry on a sales call that you do when you're just on, like, that on a first date and you guys are just fucking clicking, you will do very well in the sales call." But what ends up happening is when people take sales calls and they're first getting started, they're so concerned about how they look, how they sound, they don't wanna ask a stupid question, that when the prospect is talking, they're not fucking listening to them. They're so fixated about what they're gonna ask next. So I think that being a great listener is extremely important and is one thing that people are just they overlook constantly. I would say another thing is just being natural and sounding human, okay?
mhm.
And I think what ends up happening is because people, when they're on sales calls, they're on this mission of like, I gotta close the deal. They're not themselves. And they can end up sounding like very robotic, or they can just end up sounding very scripted, and it can end up sounding like they're playing a game of fucking 21 questions. When instead, if you are just listening to the person and you're making it natural, you're gonna end up closing more. This is why, like, when I first work with beginners, I tell them, dude, I'd rather you follow the process fucking 40% of the way and just make it more natural instead of following something that's super scripted. Because if you follow the script, you're not gonna be human. It's gonna be too obvious what you're trying to do. You're trying to sell the guy, right? So I'd say sounding natural, being very patient. These are like two of the biggest traits that I'd say are extremely, extremely important when it comes to just doing well in sales. Yeah.
And again, going back to how quickly you were able to progress yourself, and again, now that you're teaching people, how would you say someone can actually be intentional about improving their sales skills?
How can someone be intentional about improving their sales skills? Ooh, okay. So one of the first things that I used to do, bro, is I would go on voice memos and I would just like have conversations with myself out loud and I would see how I sounded. I think that's something that a lot of people should start doing because a lot of people hate the sound of their own voice.
Mm,
But here's the funny thing. They do nothing about it. Like one thing that really annoys me when I work with beginners is they won't watch their own sales calls. And it's because they're so afraid of like constructive criticism. But it's to me, it kind of doesn't make sense because it's like they're afraid of giving themselves constructive criticism, which is fucking crazy because it's like if you're afraid of your own feedback, what does that say about you getting feedback from your actual coach? Right? Which is insane. And this is why I say that like when people are not successful in any area of their life, even when it comes to just getting started with sales, the one person that's standing in their way is themselves. And to be honest, it's even ego. So when it comes to people getting better at sales and improving their skill set, number one is like get comfortable with getting fucking criticized, especially by yourself. Because the one person that's standing in your way in the beginning stages, even maybe later on, depends on how long you hide from that guy, is going to be you.
mm,
Right. So the moment you can get comfortable doing that, you're going to get a lot better. Like, bro, I've never really had a sales coach. And when I tell that to people, they don't fucking believe me. I've never invested in a sales training program in my life. Right? And I think that a reason why I still got really fucking good is because I would actually watch my sales calls. I had this autistic, like monastic obsession over like watching my calls and looking at my facial expressions, looking at the expressions that my prospects made when I would say a certain thing. And I was like, ooh, they didn't like that. I shouldn't have said that. Or like, ah, that wasn't good. So I was not afraid of criticizing myself. And because of that, I think that dude, I made so much progress so fucking fast.
And do you think, for example, you mentioned watching your calls back, but you're not getting feedback from anyone else. So I think at that point, again, from me looking in, it's easy to notice, okay, I did this wrong. But then how are you aware of what direction you can take to actually improve that, right? So like I saw someone's
Yes.
facial expression didn't work out
Yeah.
because I said this. What should I do instead? How do you figure that out?
So that being said, though, I think it is still obviously important to have a coach because I did temporarily have a coach for about 2 months. So when I had a coach for about 2 months, I knew things to look out for, right?
Mm.
So when it came to grading myself, I wasn't able to just like, it's not like I was following like a subjective process over like, okay, this is what I could have said better. This is what I should have said better. I still knew what to actually do. The point I was trying to make though is when it came to coaching myself, I was taking that a lot more serious than most people would,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And also, I do think that, obviously shameless plug here, but I think that people should get a fucking coach, right? If you're not going to get a coach, you're not going to get results with really anything.
I hear that for sure.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, we can speak briefly about your offer because, you mentioned you coach people, you help them improve their skills. Is there placement as well within
Yes.
that? Like,
There's placement as well. Yeah.
how does that work? What is it that you're actually selling these days as a full
Yes.
package?
Yes. So the full package is we come in, train you in sales. Once you've completed the program, I have a placement test where we just run you through a few objection handling questions. And then once you pass them, we get you placed inside of a company. But I am starting to steer a little bit more away from that because what I truly am passionate about is working with sales reps that are already in the industry. They're making 5 or 10K a month in commissions. And my goal is to get them to 30, 40, or 50K a month in commissions. Because not many sales coaches have been able to do that, but I've been able to do that consistently with my clients. And so to me, that's a much bigger flex. And it's also way more fun because for fulfillment, it's literally me. I don't have a fucking sales coach that I hired. It's literally me. So for me, that offer comes with I evaluate your sales process or review your calls one-on-one and I get you fucking better. Literally guaranteed.
Love that. And I mean, there's a lot more that I want to dig into in terms of mindset, but just I guess moral question that I wanted to bring up because I was having a conversation with a friend we both know
Yeah.
the other day, and I was speaking to him about being a closer and how his experience has been like, and he spoke very positively of it, very positively of you as well. But he brought up something that I wanted to get your take on,
Yeah.
where he said essentially there is this like moral dilemma where sometimes someone jumps on a call with you and you know that that person probably is not going to be able to get results or an outcome that you're selling, but you're in a position where you're incentivized to sell it anyway, regardless of what's in their best interest. So how have you kind of grown to see that kind of conundrum?
I love that question. And it's true. There definitely is a more dilemma associated with that. But here's how I look at it. When I was first getting started with wanting to build an agency, that guy was never going to fucking succeed. Right. Now, granted, I did not have to hop on a sales call with somebody to buy the program. But what if that's something that I needed? What if I had not hopped on a sales call, I would have never bought that program? If I hopped on a sales call at that point to actually buy a program when I was first getting started, and there was a sales rep that didn't push me to actually buy that program, and I never bought the program, I'd have never been in this position that I'm today, right? Because building an agency is not what got me rich. It was sales, but how would I have gotten into sales if I did not try to build an agency, right? So the way that I look at it is if I see a person and I'm like, I don't know if this person right now can actually succeed, well, that's the reason why they're buying the fucking program, right? So who the fuck am I to judge that person from their current situation when in reality, they're going to obviously have to change their perspective. They're going to have to become a whole new version, a 2.0 version of themselves to actually succeed. That's the whole point, right? That 1.0 version of them is not going to succeed. That 2.0 version of them is going to succeed. But how the hell is that person going to become a 2.0 version of them? Unless they actually learn and they are given a path to actually follow. So that's how I look at it.
For sure. And what you mentioned as well about like the failures it actually takes to build up that backlog and pull the slingshot back, right?
Exactly.
I think sometimes you do need to
Yeah.
to go through them.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's
Bro,
different
everyone
ways.
has their time.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, bro, I remember there's people that like back when I was closing, I sold on programs and like they did not get results with those programs, but they became hyper successful later on
Mm.
because they eventually figured it out. They had their backlog of failures, right? That's the whole point. So for any closer that's watching this, if you guys are lacking conviction, stop fucking judging your prospects, right? Maybe it's not their time now, but you're still doing them a fucking favor by selling them a program because that program is still going to give them a perspective that they don't have right now. Maybe they're not going to make money with the business model that you're selling them, but maybe it's going to give them discipline to find a model that will actually work for them in the long run. But that won't ever happen unless they actually put their foot on the gas and do something and commit to something.
I like that. I think it makes sense. And, to turn more to mindset, 'cause this is something I really want to dig into with you as well. But when you look back at your lowest moments, like, what do you remember actually clinging on to and having as the kind of North Star that would kind of take you through them?
Bro, I had this saying that I would always say, and it was that one day it's all gonna make sense. And like I remember, like in like my lowest moments when I would have people ridiculing me. This could be family members. This could be my father. I would just clench my fist, bite my tongue, and I was like, one day it's all gonna make sense. And even though I had no idea how it was gonna make sense, it was just a saying that I always had. I was like, one day it's all gonna make sense. One day it's all gonna make sense. One day it's all gonna make sense. And every time I would say that, I would just like have that. I would just visualize that version of me that made it, that was able to just shut everyone up, and that's the person that I would just think to, and that's the person I would look to for guidance. And it's really, 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 really fucking hard to do that in the beginning, especially when like you just have a whole host of failures and like nothing ever makes sense because you don't have a track record of success. But this is why I said like you have to be fucking delusional, and that's what I did.
I like that. And even based on that as well, I saw a clip you posted of it was in one of your videos of like self-recording from
Yeah.
2020,
Yeah.
where you said you had sent out hundreds of emails for your agency, you had only booked one meeting,
Yeah.
but you were recording it because you knew you'd make something of yourself and be able to post it one day as inspiration for people.
Yeah.
Do you remember what led you to actually record that back
Yep.
then?
I remember, bro. I remember like it's yesterday. Oh, it was crazy. I just think that like I would do those things because I just felt so low, and it's like I desperately needed someone to tell me that it was gonna be okay, and I didn't have anyone to tell me that. So I was like, I'll be that person for me. So I remember like, dude, I remember I had that purple hoodie, right? I just came back from my shift. I whipped out my camera, and I just started recording. And when the video was done, I was like, okay, either I'm gonna succeed and one day I'm gonna post this, or it'll just be in my camera roll forever. But in the one reality that this does work out, I'll be infinitely grateful that I did have this on camera. And that's why I did that. Matter of fact, even when I quit closing, I still have the video, by the way, me staring into the camera and saying, I will make $50,000 a month or I will die trying. And it happened 3 months after that.
Has that kind of recording of yourself, regardless of the period you're in, kind of looking forward, always played a role
Yes.
in your mind?
Yes, 100%. Because it would kind of just gamify a little bit for me, right? And it would also just make it much more real, if that makes sense. I've always been a person who's been bad at avoiding his emotions. I know some people are able to kind of skip that. I'm not that guy. For me, it's like I can be a robot for a few days, but then I have to like sit down and process my emotions at once. That's kind of how my brain works. And so I feel like during those time periods in my life that were very, very stressful, where I was like, absorbing those emotions and thinking about them and thinking like, oh, fuck, this is really bad. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know what I want to do. I would just pull up the camera and just document it, right? And be like, no, it's going to be okay.
I like that. And okay, we can touch on this, but I heard you say on one of the videos as well that having a strong why was big for you.
Yes.
So, I mean, let me take you right back to the start. What was the why you had originally going into a business or going into sales when you started that?
Dude, I just like, I'm going to be just as real as possible because I don't want to give a bullshit answer. I just didn't want to be a fucking loser. I was just so tired of that, man. In my mind, I was like, I've not accomplished anything remarkable in my life. And that's just so sad. That's so sad. I remember thinking to myself, I was like, how lucky am I to be exposed to this side of the internet where there's kids my age who are making multiple 6 figures a year, multiple 7 figures a year. And I was like, I've come across this information. So if I don't do this, how sad would that be? Like, it's a moral obligation that I have to myself to just fucking attempt it and to just become that version of myself. Like, I remember just thinking to myself, I was like, bro, like, what am I going to do? I'm going to just go to school, get a normal job, make 40, 50 grand a year. I was like, at that point, I haven't even done better than my father. How fucking sad is that? So my why just stemmed from not wanting to live a mediocre life, bro. I remember like my conviction was so crazy during that time period in my life where like I told myself I'd rather die than live a life of mediocrity. And I remember the first time I told that to my cousin, like my eyes were just watering. That's how bad I wanted it. I remember telling myself, like, dude, I'd rather if the sacrifice I have to make is I die at 50, but I achieve my life, I'll do that.
Mm.
Because I'd rather live a life that was actually fucking meaningful, that when I'm at my fucking deathbed, I'm like, "You know what? This wasn't too bad."
Yeah, when you've seen others show you that it's possible.
Yeah.
So no, I can relate to that part. And I mean, we spoke about this earlier, and take it in whatever direction you want. But I'd love to know how your why has not only how your why has changed over time,
Mhm.
but how it changing affected you and how you were living your day to day, and yeah, like perceiving the world around you.
Yeah, bro. It's crazy. So, as I mentioned before, like, I was extremely insecure, and that was, like, my biggest superpower, and that led me to having this extremely unhealthy obsession, where essentially I was living life at, like, 30% saturation because the only thing that I was thinking about was just working all day, right? And this is a concept that, like, we talked about a little bit before when we were having food. Dude, I hated myself so much. Like, I fucking hated myself. Like, I remember funny story, okay? So that first year of me just feeling with entrepreneurship, right? I was working at Pizza Hut. One of my friends, he came in to order a pizza. I hid. I was like, I can't have this guy see me like working here. I remember I was like just isolating myself from the world because I just hated being in my skin so much.
Mm.
And what's crazy is even when I had success, it's like that hatred still carried there, right? It's like the goalpost just kept getting bigger and bigger. But at the same time, dude, it made me so much fucking money. But it was bad because it was stemming from such a deep level of insecurity. And so what happened eventually is like I just burnt out and I was like, dude, I need to fucking take a break. I need to reevaluate my life because a lot of the things that I wanted to do, I did. Like a lot of the materialistic things I wanted. Like I wanted a Rolex collection, I did that. I wanted to pay for my parents' mortgage, I did that. I wanted a fuck you car, I bought a G Wagon. But then it eventually just came to the point where I was like, I already had everything that I want. Like, why am I still doing this? Right. And that over time is like what caused me to shift my why. And honestly, it's something that I've been pondering over the past few months. And at this point, I'm at a point where in my life where I've now changed that meaning of that. And at this point, my new why is I genuinely want to build the greatest education company for sales in info space. That is my new why. Whereas my why before was I don't want to be broke. But it gets to the point where it's like 3 years in, it's like, where does it end? Right.
It doesn't
That's
serve
not
you
something
anymore.
that's tangible. It doesn't serve you anymore.
Hmm. Oh, for sure. And drawing from we're speaking about this insecurities point as well earlier. This concept of using negativity as fuel.
Hmm.
I think it's something I've always heard, and I think it's easy to say, but as someone who was actually able to do it,
Hmm.
what did that actually look like for you to take that, what you described as hatred for yourself,
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
insecurity, trauma? How were you able to take that and put it into work or something productive?
Dude, I remember like literally writing down in my journal. It's so dramatic. It's so dramatic, bro. But I was like, that old version of me is dead. This new version of me is not going to think like him. He's not going to breathe like him, and he's not going to live like him. And I remember like any time that I just felt tired and exhausted, and I just didn't want to work. Like, dude, it sounds fucked up, but like I would just think back to those moments of trauma, and it would just keep me going, bro. Like, dude, for 3 years, like I'm not lying, bro. I slept 4 hours a day, bro, for 3 fucking years. You know how hard that is? It's psychotic. But like in my mind, I would like when I was tired in the morning, I wake up and I would just think back to those traumatic memories. It just kept me going. Look, for some people it's worth it, for some people it's not. I mean, looking back at it, I think there was definitely a better way. But looking back at it, I wouldn't change any of it, bro. Because I would not have gained the perspective that I did now. And to be honest, I would have not made anywhere near the fucking money that I made now. So it's a trade-off, bro. It's a double-edged sword. Like on one end, like it's extremely unhealthy, but on the other, like it'll light a fire up your ass like nothing else will, bro. That much I will tell you.
I definitely hear that. And another thing, I mean, you've said it today as well, but you said you don't consider yourself to be a smart guy, but that you found the right vehicle for you.
Mhm.
How do you think someone can be able, like generally, how would you recommend someone go about finding the right vehicle for them that makes sense for them?
Yeah. You just have to try a bunch of different shit. You know what I mean? It's like, how did you know what your favorite food was?
Hmm.
You had to try a lot of shitty foods, right? And I feel like I don't fucking like that. I like that. It's kind of the same thing for you know, for building a skill set. Like, you just have to try things and just be open-minded. And you have to be comfortable with failing. Like, dude, one thing that, like, this shit pisses me off so much, right? Is like when people like are getting started, in their minds, they're so afraid of failing. And it's like, bro, like, what's the worst outcome? Your life right now is the worst fucking outcome. Like, it's only up from here, dude. Like, if you're failing, you're already failing. You know what I mean? Like, if a person is failing right now in life and they're deeply unhappy and they're thinking, oh, if I try this business, if I try to learn sales and I fail, I'm fucked. It's like, you are already fucked. You are already failing. You've already lived 20 years of failure. Right? But sometimes I'm just like, maybe it's my brain is just super black and white. I've just always been hyperlogical. But if there's one thing I want to make abundantly clear, guys, just fucking go for it. You literally have nothing to lose. Your life right now is already shit. That in itself should be enough of a motivation factor to just get your shit together. Even if you fail, who cares? You've already been failing. All it takes is one win. Literally, one win is all it takes. I failed so much. Thank fucking God I failed so much because I got into sales and changed my entire life. And if I didn't keep going for it, I would have been screwed. I would have been maybe working as an accountant, hating my fucking life. All right, so thank God I kept failing.
1,000%. And again, something I was gonna ask earlier, but that first moment, I mean, was it the first moment that like your first paycheck came in from sales? Like, at what point did things click for you in terms of, oh shit, this is it, this is me, this is the vehicle that.
Oh, dude, the first month, I was like, hi, bro. Like, I remember like it's yesterday. I even have the video recorded on my iPhone of me like driving back. Because I remember I was like, okay, if I can make 10K in commissions this month, or actually I was like, if I can make 7K in commissions, which happened 2 weeks in, I was like, I'm gonna drive back to Montreal. And I remember just driving back and being like, I love my life. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do this forever. The first month I clicked, bro. Like, for me, like, I've always been the type of guy who has moved with speed and I've made decisions very quickly. And I've also been very intuitive. Like, I trust my intuition. So it felt right. And I was like, fuck it. I know this is it.
Mm.
I'm gonna commit to this fully. Like, I didn't need any more proof than that. And like 2 months in, I dropped out. I didn't have to make 100K to drop out. I made 10K a month, 2 months in a row. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not going to school anymore. All right. Best decision I made. And that's another thing I see as well, is like, guys, like, if it fucking feels right, just do it. Trust your fucking intuition. A lot of people don't trust themselves. And it's like, if you can get better at trusting yourself, you will become a lot more successful. Because if you don't fucking trust yourself, how are you going to trust other people? How are you going to trust anything? Right? So I think that if you guys can master the skill set of trusting yourself, trusting your gut, being honest with yourself, and making decisions faster, the likelihood of you succeeding will be significantly greater than what it is right now.
Completely.
Because you can't just keep fucking second guessing life. Second guessing every decision. What's that going to lead you to? Nothing. Stagnation.
That's facts. When you mentioned their intuition, you've mentioned faith. We haven't really spoken about God and the concept of, I mean, religion, but beyond that, what kind of a role did, again, faith, belief play in your journey, and still plays today?
Bro, a massive role. A massive role. If you can believe that the universe or God or whatever you believe in, if you believe that a higher power has your best interests, you will lead life with a level of optimism that you fucking need. Because if you don't believe in God, or you don't believe there's a higher power out there, this is just me just honestly looking for the atheist guys, like, look, it is what it is. But like, you guys are just going to be negative, right? Like, there's a nihilistic. I don't know anyone nihilistic has fucking one. Do you? You know what I mean? So if anything, bro, when I started succeeding, my relationship with God actually increased. Because I was like, God has my best interest. Right? So I think that having faith is very, very, very important. And for me, it's been a very large factor in me just staying consistent, honestly, and me being successful.
That's beautiful, bro. When you look back at your whole journey up to this point,
yeah,
what would you say is the thing you're most proud of?
Bro, I'd say it's that version of me that was defeated, that was crying in the car at 2 a.m., not shutting out his voice and listening to him and just not giving up. Like, even when I was like, I don't know how the fuck this is going to work. Because, bro, the amount of times that I want to just fucking quit and just say, fuck this, like, wrap it up, right? Because every day, bro, I would go to sleep with just dread. of like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? This isn't working. And it would have been so fucking easy to shut off that guy's voice and just be like, we're stupid. This is not going to work. Forget it. But I never did. And I always kept his voice at the forefront of my mind. And I think that's why I succeeded. And I'm infinitely proud of that. Because doing that was harder than anything I'll ever do from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Because now in my brain, I've already succeeded, right? So for me to do anything else from here on out, it's like, of course I'm gonna fucking win because I'm a fucking winner. But I wasn't a winner back then. I was a loser. But I still listened to him. And I still carried that dream. And I made it happen.
At what point do you think you were able to flick the switch from I'm a loser to I'm a winner?
Personally, as soon as I succeeded and I hit like my first 10K month, that's when it happened because I just became so fucking proud of myself. The advice that I would give people though is like, if you tell yourself that you're gonna do something and you fucking do it, you are already a winner. If you say I'm gonna wake up at 8 a.m. and you've done that consistently, you are a winner. If you say I'm gonna do my fucking outreach, you're a winner. If you say I'm gonna go to the gym and you do it, you're a winner. In my opinion, you are a winner if you are a man that stays true to his word, because your word is fucking everything. And this is what I mean. Like, you have to get good at trusting yourself and being honest with yourself. Because the moment that you tell yourself you're going to do something and you don't do it is the moment that your subconscious mind does not believe in you anymore. And if you don't believe in you, you're fucked. Because the whole world can believe in you, but if you don't believe in you, well, what's the point?
Facts. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is, one of the finishes I normally do, but if you could think back to a version of yourself that was going through a tough time, whatever that was for you, we might have spoken about it, might be personal, but what advice would you give to that version of yourself that's from then?
I would go to that version and I would tell him it's all going to work out because it was meant to work out. And you might not believe that now. You might not trust that now. You might say that doesn't make any sense, but it will, because you were born to win. It's going to work out. Trust me, bro, it's going to fucking work out.
That's beautiful. Then, yeah, I mean, before wrapping up, what's next for Hassan?
Bro, what's next for me is locking in fucking content, because I have not made that much content coming to the UK as of recent. I just did a mastermind event where I was one of the guest speakers. And yeah, it just opened my eyes a ton to what making content can do, right? I've already had a large impact in my small niche, but it makes me realize how much of a larger impact I could have had. But instead of, dwelling on the past, I'm like, fuck it, let me actually take this content stuff seriously. One of the reasons I'm on this podcast with you. And so, yeah, that's the next season of my life. I'm very, very excited to make a lot more content. So I'm gonna be much more active on Instagram, Go to Sales, and on YouTube as well, which is just my name, Hassan Chattha, to make a much greater impact.
I'll have all the links in the description. And,
Yes, sir.
we're recording this early December. By the time this comes out, hope people can hold you accountable to that as well.
Oh, bro, no, trust me. I'm gonna be making content, bro. I'm gonna make a lot of content.
Let's run it, bro. But yeah, any final message, anecdote, story, quote you'd want to leave the viewer with?
Yeah, I mean, guys, the one thing that I'll tell you is just, this is what I've told prospects so many times, is if there's something that you really want to do, just go for it. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're saying right now, Hassan, the likelihood of me succeeding is 0.00000000001%, I'd say, okay, sure. But in the one reality where that version of you that has a success rate of 0.001% succeeds, what the fuck did he have to do? He had to do it, right? So just do it. You might fail, you might not. I don't fucking know. No one knows, right? But in reality, for you to have the life that you want, you had to do it. So just fucking do it, right? As scary as it is, as much as it hurts, just do it. Because at your deathbed, do you want to be filled with regret, or do you want to be filled with, I know I fucking tried? Because check this out. At your deathbed, either you'll have the life that you always wanted, but even if you don't, at least you'll know, knowing very well that you actually gave it an honest chance. And what's crazy is you might not believe this now, but I promise you that for anyone that gives this an honest chance and you guys stick with this for 3 years, you will make it work. I don't know anyone that has stuck with something for 3 years consistently, has put in consistent work, honest work, that hasn't made it work. I haven't met a guy like that. And chances are, for anyone that's watching this, their intelligence level is at least average, right?
At least average.
At least, right? Like the fact that they're even fucking exposed to this, it's like you should be fucking grateful. I don't say this from a perspective of ego. I'm just saying this from a perspective of like they've been exposed to this sphere of the internet, right? So you owe it to yourself to be the best version of you. So just fucking do it.
1000%. No, I love that. And yeah, even just to bring one of my own thoughts, it's I think you're a perfect example of someone who walks the talk
Mhm.
and who has done it for themselves.
Mhm.
And to before be speaking about obsession and your journey as a whole when we were eating before, it just made me realize like you actually did live the life of a guy obsessed over this and a guy that was hyper focused on just making something happen
Yep.
because he needed to make something more of himself. And I think you're a prime example of, you know, someone that actually managed to lock in and make it happen.
Thank you, bro.
And yeah, bro, I think it's a lot of credit to that because a lot of people in your situation wouldn't have had the self-reflection moments and the down moments and use that as the fuel to
Yeah.
be able to take off. So
Yeah.
yeah, bro, huge props to you. And
Thank you, bro.
I'm super excited, especially as we were saying before, for this next phase of your life where you're driven by a different kind of why and a different kind of ambition. I think that's going to allow you to go to a whole other level altogether.
100%. I appreciate it, bro. You said a lot of kind words.
Oh, amazing. But yeah, with that being said, if you want to check out another episode of these conversations we've done with a mutual friend of ours, Muhiz, you can check out that episode right here.